You wake up tired, not physically, but mentally drained. And the strange part is that nothing big happened, no tragedy, no collapse, no obvious disaster. Yet you feel exhausted. You go through the day carrying a quiet weight that no one else seems to notice. You replay conversations, you rethink decisions, you worry about how you came across. You wonder if you said too much or not enough, if you disappointed someone, if someone misunderstood you. And by the end of the day, you're empty, not because you worked too hard, but because you cared too much. You care about how people feel around you. You care about not upsetting anyone. You care about being fair, kind, reasonable, understanding. You care about being liked, respected, accepted. You carry emotional responsibility for things that were never yours to carry. And no one taught you that this has a cost. You tell yourself you're just being considerate, that you're just trying to be a good person, that caring is a strength, but inside something doesn't add up. Because if caring this much is so noble, why does it leave you feeling depleted instead of fulfilled? Why do you feel tense instead of peaceful? Why does rest never feel like enough? Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never say out loud. You are not exhausted because you do too much. You are exhausted because your mind never turns off. Even when nothing is happening, something is happening inside you. You are constantly monitoring, constantly adjusting, constantly anticipating reactions. You read between lines that may not exist. You take responsibility for moods that aren't yours. You carry guilt without being accused, and you do it automatically. You don't even remember choosing this. It just became who you are. You became the one who understands, the one who adapts, the one who smooths things over, the one who thinks ahead so others don't have to. And slowly, quietly, you disappear from your own life. Because when you're always managing the emotional temperature of the room, you're never fully present in it. You don't speak freely. You don't rest deeply. You don't move lightly. You're always holding something. And the worst part is this: people don't see how much you're carrying. They only see that you handle things well. So they give you more to handle, more expectations, more emotional labor, more unspoken responsibility, until one day you wake up and realize something frightening. You don't remember the last time you felt truly relaxed around people. You don't remember the last time you weren't thinking 3 steps ahead. You don't remember what it feels like to not care, not in a cold way, but in a free way. And maybe you've asked yourself this quietly, almost with shame. Why do others seem lighter than me? Why do some people say what they think and sleep just fine? Why do some people walk away without over-explaining, without guilt, without replaying it all night? What do they know that I don't? Because you've tried caring less. You've told yourself to stop overthinking. You've promised yourself you wouldn't let things get to you, and yet here you are again. Tired, overloaded, drained by things that shouldn't have this much power over you. This isn't weakness, and it's not because you're broken. It's because somewhere along the way, you learned that caring deeply was how you stayed safe, how you stayed connected, how you avoided rejection, and you never questioned it until now. Because if this feeling is familiar, if this exhaustion feels personal, then this video isn't about changing who you are. It's about understanding why you became this way and what it's quietly costing you. At some point, this didn't start as exhaustion. It started as adaptation. You weren't born caring this much. You learned it, slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. You learned that being attentive kept things calm, that anticipating reactions avoided conflict, that reading the room made life easier. And at first, it worked. When you noticed moods early, you prevented problems. When you explained yourself well, misunderstandings disappeared. When you adjusted, tension dropped. Your brain connected the dots. Caring equals safety. Awareness equals control. Approval equals stability. This is where the trap begins, because what starts as emotional intelligence slowly turns into emotional vigilance. You stop responding to life, you start managing it. Psychology has a name for this pattern. It's not weakness, it's conditioning. When acceptance feels uncertain, the mind adapts by becoming hyper-aware. You don't wait to be rejected, you prevent rejection. You don't wait to be misunderstood, you over-explain. You don't wait for conflict, you neutralize it before it exists. And over time, this becomes automatic. You don't ask, do I want this? You ask, will this upset someone? You don't think, what feels right? You think, what's safest? Approval slowly becomes a currency, not because you're insecure, but because you learned that harmony had a price, and you were willing to pay it. Society reinforces this. From early on, you're praised for being agreeable, for being mature, for being easy to deal with. You're told you're good because you don't cause problems, because you think of others, because you're considerate. No one tells you when the line is crossed, when consideration becomes self-erasure, when empathy becomes obligation. So you keep going. And here's the cruel irony. The better you get at emotional management, the more invisible your needs become. People assume you're fine, that you can handle it, that you don't mind, because you rarely say otherwise. This is how the mind gets stuck. You start believing that your worth is tied to how well you manage others' comfort. You become valuable for your regulation, not your presence, for your flexibility, not your truth. And once approval becomes emotional currency, letting go feels dangerous. Because if you stop caring, who are you? What happens if you disappoint someone? If you say no without explaining? If you don't soften your words? If you don't manage the outcome? Your nervous system reacts as if something terrible will happen. Rejection, abandonment, conflict, even when none of those things are actually guaranteed. This is why logic alone doesn't fix it. You can understand, intellectually, that you shouldn't care this much, but your body doesn't listen, because this pattern wasn't built by thought, it was built by repetition. And here's the most relieving part. This isn't a personality flaw. It's not that you're too sensitive or too much. It's a learned survival strategy, one that once protected you, one that once made sense. But survival strategies don't ask if they're still needed. They just keep running, even when the environment changes, even when the threat is gone. And now, the same mechanism that once kept you safe is draining you, because you're still paying the price, even when there's nothing to buy. This is the trap. You think caring more will finally bring peace, but it only creates more tension. You think explaining more will bring clarity, but it only reinforces anxiety. You think managing everything will keep you secure, but it quietly consumes your energy. And until this is seen clearly, the cycle continues. Not because you choose it, but because it feels familiar, and familiar feels safe. But what feels safe isn't always what sets you free. And this is where the real shift begins, because once you see the trap, a deeper question appears. What if the thing you've been using to stay safe is the very thing keeping you exhausted? And what if caring less doesn't make you worse? What if it makes you whole? Here's where things become uncomfortable. Because the very behavior you were praised for, the one that made you good, mature, considerate, is the same behavior that's draining your life force. This is the paradox. The more you try to please, the less alive you feel. The more you adjust yourself to others, the less connected you become to who you actually are. At first, caring feels like virtue, empathy, kindness, responsibility, but unchecked, it slowly becomes a prison, because caring too much doesn't expand your life, it narrows it. You start editing yourself in real time, filtering thoughts before they're spoken, softening truth before it's expressed, delaying decisions until everyone else is comfortable, and all of that costs energy, more than you realize. Psychology confirms something counterintuitive. People who seek approval the least are often perceived as the most confident. Not because they're arrogant, not because they're cold, but because their energy isn't fragmented. They are not divided between who they are and who they're trying to be for others. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how the most grounded people rarely over-explain? They don't rush to justify themselves. They don't chase agreement. They don't negotiate their worth. And strangely enough, people listen. Respect follows clarity, not effort. This is where most people get stuck. They believe, if I care less, I'll become selfish. If I stop explaining, I'll be misunderstood. If I don't manage emotions, things will fall apart. But look closer. The people who constantly explain themselves are rarely understood anyway. The people who bend the most are rarely respected. And the people who carry everyone's emotional weight are often taken for granted. Not because others are cruel, but because humans adapt to what is offered consistently. If you always make room, people assume space is infinite. Here's the paradox in its clearest form. The less you try to control perception, the more stable your presence becomes. The less you chase validation, the more solid your self-respect grows. The less you fear disappointing others, the more trustworthy you appear. This isn't theory, it's observable reality. Confidence is not loud, it's economical. It doesn't waste energy proving itself, and exhaustion is often a sign of inner negotiation, a constant silent debate. Should I say this? Is this okay? Will this upset someone? Am I doing enough? That internal friction drains you faster than action ever could. You're not tired because life is heavy. You're tired because you're carrying things that were never yours. And here's the truth, few people are ready to face. Caring too much doesn't make you more compassionate. It makes you more controllable, because anyone who fears disapproval can be guided by it. This is why boundaries feel terrifying at first. Not because they're wrong, but because they disrupt an old identity. The identity of the one who smooths things over, who absorbs tension, who keeps everything balanced. Letting go of that role feels like losing purpose, but it's not. It's reclaiming it. Because when you stop over-caring, something strange happens. You don't become harsher, you become clearer. You don't lose empathy, you lose resentment. You don't stop connecting, you stop self-betraying. And people sense this shift immediately. Some will resist it because they benefited from the old version of you. Others will respect it because clarity is easier to trust than compliance. This is the turning point, where caring stops being automatic and becomes intentional, where your energy is no longer scattered but directed. And that leads to the next crucial step, because understanding the paradox is not enough. You need to know how to detach without becoming someone you're not, and that's exactly what comes next. This is where most people misunderstand the message. They hear care less and imagine becoming cold, detached, unreachable. That's not what this is. Detachment is not emotional shutdown, it's emotional accuracy. It's not about feeling less, it's about leaking less. There's a massive difference between not caring and caring selectively. One is avoidance, the other is maturity. The problem was never that you care. The problem is that you care without boundaries. You respond to every emotional signal. You absorb moods that aren't yours. You feel responsible for outcomes you don't control. That's not empathy. That's self-erasure. Healthy detachment begins with a simple shift. You stop managing what is not your responsibility. Other people's reactions, their interpretations, their emotional regulation, those are not yours to carry. You can be present without performing, kind without explaining, supportive without self-sacrifice. Detachment doesn't remove warmth. It removes obligation. And obligation is what creates resentment. Have you noticed this? When you do something out of obligation, even kindness becomes heavy. But when you choose it freely, it feels clean. This is the core of correct detachment. Choice instead of compulsion. You don't disappear. You stop over-functioning. You don't stop listening. You stop internalizing. You don't stop caring. You stop negotiating your worth. There is a quiet strength in people who no longer explain themselves unnecessarily. They speak once, clearly. Then they let the response be what it is. No chasing, no softening, no self-correction after the fact. That doesn't make them rude. It makes them anchored. Detachment is also about timing. You don't react immediately. You pause, not to suppress emotion, but to choose response. That pause alone changes everything, because most emotional exhaustion comes from instant reactions, from feeling responsible to respond now, fix now, clarify now. Detachment teaches you something radical. Not everything requires your energy. Not every discomfort is a problem. Not every silence is rejection. Not every tension needs resolution. This is how emotional autonomy is built. And here's the part most people fear. Some relationships will change, not because you became worse, but because you stopped overgiving. People who relied on your emotional labor will feel the absence first. That doesn't mean you did something wrong. It means the dynamic was imbalanced. Healthy relationships don't collapse when boundaries appear. They adjust. Only fragile ones break. Detachment also clarifies something important. You begin to see who connects to you and who connects to what you provide. Support, validation, stability, emotional regulation. When that constant output stops, the difference becomes obvious. This is not loss, it's filtration. And filtration creates space. Space to think clearly. Space to feel fully. Space to choose where your energy actually belongs. Detachment is not the absence of love. It's love without self-abandonment. It allows you to stay open without being drained, present without being consumed, caring without collapsing. This is where real strength lives, not in hardening yourself, but in stabilizing yourself. And when you reach that point, something unexpected happens. You don't just feel better. Your life starts organizing itself around clarity. Decisions become simpler, relationships become cleaner, your mind becomes quieter, which brings us to the final integration, because detachment is not an endpoint, it's a foundation, and what you build on it determines everything that comes next. At this point, something should feel different, not dramatic, not euphoric, quieter. Because the shift you're making isn't about changing who you are. It's about returning to yourself. You don't need to care less in general. You need to care correctly. Your exhaustion was never a lack of strength. It was a lack of boundaries. You spent years mistaking emotional vigilance for responsibility, approval for connection, over-explaining for kindness. And slowly, without noticing, you outsourced your sense of worth. This is where it comes back. Integration is not a new rule set. It's a new internal posture. You still feel deeply. You still notice. You still care, but you no longer chase emotional closure from the outside. You stop asking, did I do enough? Did they misunderstand me? Should I explain again? And instead you ask, was I honest? Was I aligned? Did I abandon myself? That question alone changes how you move through life. Because when you stop managing how you're perceived, your energy returns to you. You walk slower, speak clearer, decide with less noise. You become less reactive and more intentional, and that creates a quiet authority, not the loud kind, not the performative kind, the kind people feel. This is what emotional maturity actually looks like. Not indifference, not distance, but inner stability. The ability to stay grounded even when things are unclear, to stay open without being porous, to care without collapsing. And here's the truth: most people never reach. Life doesn't get lighter because problems disappear. It gets lighter because you stop carrying what was never yours, other people's expectations, their emotional fluctuations, their interpretations of you. You let them exist without letting them define you. That's not detachment from life. That's engagement without self-betrayal. And when you live this way, something subtle but powerful happens. You become harder to manipulate, harder to drain, harder to destabilize. Not because you've hardened your heart, but because you've anchored it. This is the difference between surviving emotionally and living deliberately. And if this reflection landed for you, if something here named a fatigue you've been carrying quietly, if this content made you think, subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. What's one thing you care too much about that's draining you? Your insight adds value to the discussion. Because clarity grows when it's shared, and awareness deepens when we put it into words. And from here forward, care becomes a choice, not a burden. And that changes everything.